Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, we have Jennifer McMurray on our show. She's from Arkansas, and she specializes in live-in flips. And she just had so many great stories on each of her flips that she shared. What I think you'll appreciate most about this episode, ladies, is that she talks a lot about the power of live-in flips and the tax advantages and strategies. And most importantly, she talks about how she was able to pay off her student loan debt as a result. So just her path, and she kind of goes through her progression on a lot of her live-in flips, is awesome. And she didn't know much at all when she got started. So I think you'll really appreciate the episode.
She also talks about one of my favorite subjects, which is dealing with contractors, right? And she gives very specifics on the strategies that she had applied in order to make her project successful. And I totally agree with her. That's where your project starts, during the negotiation phase. So if you're looking to rehab a project, if you're looking to rent a project, you're going to have to deal with a general contractor or with a handyman. Take those strategies that she is recommending and apply in your business. Absolutely, hands down. Check it out.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Investor Show. We are so excited to have Jennifer on our show today. Welcome, Jennifer, to our show and our tribe of women.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So excited to jump into her story. It's absolutely fascinating. I have like 85 questions to ask you. So we're going to get through about 80 of them, right? Today.
Okay, great.
But before we do, we just want to welcome you ladies back. So excited to have you back on our show again for another great week. And we always like to connect with all of you, something that's coming up for us personally, professionally, and then we jump into the interview or the content. Of course, we want to get to it. We know you have a lot of things on your plate. So,
What's going on?
What's going on? Well, I got to tell you.
What?
The coronavirus, right?
Oh,
I mean, I just gotta talk about this because it's like, I'm not someone who watches the news. I haven't for probably 20 years.
I was wondering that. I was going to say to you, hey, there's a thing called coronavirus that I think you should know about.
No, that's what I mean. Like, so today, my husband's not feeling well and he's like, I think I have the coronavirus. I'm like, I don't think you do, but I don't even know what goes into it. But why I wanted to bring it up on our show today is because, like anything, if you plug into the world, you're going to get pulled into the world. And you have to be really guarded with your mind and your energy, because if you're not, it's so easy to get pulled, right? I'm waiting for my son's bus this morning. Everyone was talking about it. I go to the supermarket and I touch something, and the woman that gave me my milk was like, well, you know about the coronavirus. So I don't even watch the news yet. It's like swarming, right? So I just say that because in order to combat that, we all have to do things, whether it's the coronavirus or other things. But like, what are we receiving into our world? I'm healthy and whole. That is what I project, right? And that's what I want to focus on. But when you have all these people coming at you, right, in your world, how do you move through that? So how I move through is I just keep like, I hear fear, I hear worry, and I'm with something, and I'm like, okay, I'm healthy and whole. And that's what I am. And I think we all need to do that in our life, whether you have people complaining about their finances and you're creating wealth for yourself. I'm financially free. I am financial. So those affirmations in the morning are great, in the evening, but I think also in those moments of the day when we're dealing with doubt and fear and other people's stuff, we have to come back with affirmations as well. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I usually say that I brainwash my brain with the stuff that I want to.
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
I like that.
Yeah, if I'm gonna brainwash my brain, so let me brainwash with stuff that I really want. Right? Mine as well. So I'm very limited too with the news that I watch and what shows I watch, the time that I watch. It's very conscious, because otherwise I'm going to bed thinking about all the stuff that happened around me in the world. It's not that I want to be isolated. It's not that. I really mindful of the news. I for those that don't know, I was a journalist in my other life, so I understand what sells, and I get it that what matters is really the audience looking in. So more like now we're seeing shortage of masks and different stuff. So getting informed, absolutely, so you can be understanding of what's going on, but panicking then is another level, right? I think we all need to be conscious about what's going on, but be mindful of the extension that we get our minds into, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I'm sure we're going to get into as we talk with Jennifer, because she's been doing some amazing things here. Like we always do, we like to kind of kick things off with our interview, sharing how you got pulled into this business of real estate investing. How did it begin for you?
Well, it was completely by accident, not really by choice. I call myself an accidental house flipper. I had no intention of doing this. I grew up in a real estate family. My dad owns a real estate brokerage, has owned that for 45 years. And when your dad owns a real estate firm and he was a real estate investor, that's code for your free labor as a child. So, Jennifer, here's a scraper, start scraping paint, or, pulling weeds, or sitting at open houses. And it was so boring to me as a child. I didn't want to do it. This was Dad's gig. Fast forward several years, and I was broke and bought a house that was just awful. It had patriotic wallpaper everywhere and holes in the carpet, and it was in a retirement village and I was in my 20s, but it's all I could afford. And I just started fixing it up. And at the end of the 2-year mark, no intentions of anything but just having a roof over my head with that house. And at the end of the 2-year mark, Dad kind of started planting the seed. Well, you could sell this house and not pay any taxes. And we're in the middle of the recession. So kind of in my defiant attitude, as I typically am, Dad, you're wrong, but I'd like to prove you wrong. So let's put it on the market, because there's no way it's going to sell for what you said. And it sold in a week over what he said in the middle of the recession. And I was hooked. And that was just the first domino that fell, that was a string of dominoes that are still going today. So big part is Dad, so.
Wow. When you say, oh, I didn't plan it, I don't know if anybody plans let me just think oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to go in a dirty house, right?
With the coronavirus.
With the coronavirus. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that you didn't know all the skills that you were learning while you were going through all this stuff with your dad. So that first house that you sold it, you follow his lead. He probably was seeing it far away and was like, oh my gosh, we'll see. She sees it, right?
One of the few times he was right.
So after that, in what point it was like your decision to say, yeah, this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do it?
The next house number 2.
Talk to me about it. What happened there?
So after I sold Flip 1, simultaneously what was going on in my life is that I was just dirt poor. I was grossing $24,000 a year. I was working multiple jobs and drowning in $70,000 worth of student loan debt. So if you do the math there, it's not adding up, to a financially free life. It was just not good. And so I took actually part of the profits from that Flip 1 and paid a big chunk of my student loans. And I, for the first time ever, saw my student loan balance go down. And I was like, whoa, I think maybe this is it. This is the key to paying off the student loans. So I did the exact same thing on the second house. I found a house that, we're still in the recession, but I found a foreclosure and I moved into it. Same thing, 2-year live and flip to avoid the capital gains, and bought, sold it after the 2-year mark and paid another big chunk. And then within 5 years, the student loan balance was gone. I don't have any student loan debt. So paying off $70,000 with live and flips, if I wasn't already hooked, that definitely did it. And now, obviously, I use the money for something else, for different investments, and because I don't have the debt anymore.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening, she mentioned twice that she sold it after the 2-year mark. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for it.
Yes.
It was not like coincidence, right?
Right. Very calculated.
Tell us about it.
So I also have the benefit that not only does my dad own a real estate brokerage, but he owns a tax preparation company. So taxes are his native language as well. And at the first flip, when he started planting the seeds of selling it, he said, there's this thing called the capital gains exemption. If it's your primary residence and you live there for 2 years, you don't have to pay any taxes on the gains. And that for sure sounded way too good to be true, because, the government doesn't give you freebies like that, right? So he was right again. One of the other few times he was right. And so each time that I've done live-in flips, I make sure my closing date is always right after the 2-year mark. And I just get that check tax-free. Uncle Sam's getting none of it, which is awesome.
That's really cool. And, so you've lived in a couple of flips. So these were the first couple properties. What, because I really want to transition to your live-in long-term hold, because so many times we hear about live-in flips, but you've actually now applying it to holding it, right? Holding that property.
Right.
So I really want to get to, but those first 2 deals, like someone listening and they maybe done a couple live-in flips, or they want to get into this to help pay down some of the debt they have. Mm-hmm. And it's perfect for their time, where they are in their life, all those sort of things add up. What, 3 things wish you would have known before you got started? Like, if you known these 3 things, right? I if there's probably more than 3, I'm sure.
But am I allowed to say more than 3?
Yeah, like 25. Go for it. Go for it.
85. Well, I will say, first flip, I didn't even own a hammer. I just didn't own tools. I didn't know how to do anything. So I wish I would have been way more well-versed in how to do things. I think it would have made the process a lot easier. I was real fortunate on the first property that I was dating a boy at the time that just knew how to do absolutely everything. And I just kind of became his apprentice. Show me how, you install wood floors. Show me how you hang a light fixture, whatever. But prior to that, that was a year into the flip before he came on the scene. So,
but you're raising a great point that I think women need to listen and really hear that their boyfriend may not be handy. God, I wish my husband was.
Right.
My husband's never been handy.
Right.
I fix things more than he does. He's like, can you get someone to do that? I'm like, it's putting a frame on the wall. I think we can handle that. Yeah, I think we can handle that.
You'll have to hire that out.
But anyway, I really want women to hear what you just said, in that someone that you like and trust, doesn't necessarily be your boyfriend, your husband, whomever, but it could be somebody locally flipping. It could be someone in your networking group. Mm-hmm. And someone's like, oh, I got this great project under contract. I'm excited about it. You're like, hey, can I come and help you and go run errands for you?
Yes.
Like, we all can apprentice under someone. And there's so many opportunities that all of us are like, I don't know where to learn these things. Mm-hmm. I have to pay $1 million to someone to teach me. Go to your local REIA group. Go to a local investor meetup. Last, one of the New Jersey meetups we had, woman raised her hand. She goes, I'm renovating a 4-unit, and I'm going to be, and anyone wants to come on a Saturday morning to just walk through it with me, I'd love to show you what I'm up to.
That's
completely
awesome.
For free, completely to support you. And like 10 hands went up. I'm like,
of
go
course.
take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus like complaining or I don't know where to go. Like, there's so much. So I just wanted to make that a point, because I hear it all the time in our forums and our groups. Like, people don't know where to go to get the support. And what you're saying is great, because I think you had a great opportunity, but we all have opportunities. So sorry about that.
Well, I will say, kind of to piggyback off what you said, he was only on the scene for the first house. He has not been on the scene for the rest
Yeah.
of them. So, you know,
Kicked him out. You're like, I could do this
yeah.
better.
Well, you know, when we were finishing up and he was doing so much, Dad was like, now listen, Jennifer, don't you dare break up with that boy till that house is done. He's like, I know I'm going to have to kick in where if he's gone. And, you know, we broke up a week after I finished the house. So timing was good. But what I was going to say is since then, what I started doing is, you know, if I hired an electrician or I hired a guy to install, I don't know, floor, whatever. Can you walk me through what you're doing? Why are you doing that? And I mean, I kind of have a reputation with myself. I'm going to ask you 10 million questions. And a lot of them was like, yeah, come here, show you how to do it. And learn from them so that I don't have to hire.
Right. There is a big difference. What you're saying, I think, is so important. This is why I'm like interrupting here. So
Yeah,
for all of you that are listening, pay attention to what she's saying right now. She's not questioning the guy. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The intention. And I think that when you're communicating with your electrician, hey, can you tell me here, why is this happening?
Yeah,
because I really want to understand and help, help me to understand how this process works here so we can continue working and make things easier on the next one.
Yeah.
But if you don't explain that to your guy, he or she, right? Who knows? Might get a little defensive about it and like take it personal. And then you know when that happened, when they tell you, well, I got started in 19 whatever, and I have 40 years of experience, blah, 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 right? So make that point right up front. Hey, I'm going to ask you questions because I'm very curious and I'm interested in what you do. If that person really loves doing what he or she does, we'll be more than happy to talk to you about everything.
Sure, yes.
Right? Isn't it so cool?
And I think it's also when you're approaching them, your tone and how you approach it. If you're treating them with respect, I think that is a big thing. If you're treating them with respect and you're genuinely coming across as just inquisitive as how you learn to do your trade. And that's usually now, how'd you get into laying tile? How'd you learn? And it becomes a dialogue so that I'm not drilling them like you said. So.
Absolutely. I remember my first house, and I told the guys, like, listen, I'm gonna shadow you because I really want to understand. And it's so funny, that was the first time ever I bought a house, and that was the first time ever I did an underpinning. I underpinned the basement. I did not know at that time how complicated, thank goodness we did it with, an engineer, with inspectors, and everything was done the right way. But that was an awesome lesson for me that propelled me to, okay, I know if you're doing right or wrong.
Right.
Because my first guy, don't get me wrong, I overpaid that guy so much. Yeah. That's fine. And I will do it all over again because I really pay for the lessons.
Right.
That is the key point. So when you look back and you have had those conversations with them, as Liz was mentioning, like, what were like the key points that you wish you knew then that you know now?
So I think this is a question I get asked the most. Well, how do you know how much they should be charging? How do you know how much to budget? How do you know what's normal labor? And I never have a really great concrete answer for that. But I really didn't have a concrete answer for that at the first flip. I mean, if you said, yeah, that's going to be $3,000. Okay. I guess that's what people charge. Okay. And then I would just decide if I wanted to do it myself or not. Now I'm not in that boat. If a sub is throwing out a number, no, that's ludicrous. I'm not paying that. Or that's too cheap and that actually worries me. I'm looking for that sweet spot in the middle. And I think that the negotiating and knowing if I'm being taken advantage of or not, I just did not know that then. And I think going back to what you said, you overpaid. I think every investor will go through that at some point. You've overpaid. but it brought you great lessons. And I think that was something that, and I think that's why I always have a disappointing answer for people. I'm like, you just learn as you go. It's just one of the, you got to get burnt once on a bad sub or overpaying or whatever the case may be, but it's a valuable lesson. But I just did not know really how to negotiate with subs and how that all worked. I just didn't, even though, you know, watching Dad do it through the years, it's totally different if you're the woman.
So circling back to what you just said about the negotiation, just to go there for a moment.
Yeah.
When you say you learned a lot, what do you now know, or what can you, because negotiation is a big piece of this business. And I think we're all figuring that out based on our own personality, our own style. So how have you been able to navigate that? What works for you?
So what I typically do, beyond getting multiple bids, is that if a sub gives me a bid, let's say $3,000 for whatever the job is, I need you to break that down for me. What is the $3,000 covering in labor? What is that covering in parts? What's your markup on parts? Whatever the case may be, because I may go through and cherry pick your bids instead of just saying it's $3,000 period. I never just take it at face value. I want to know how much you're upcharging me. And sometimes if I don't like the amount of upcharge that you're giving me on a bid, okay, cut out the materials, I'll get them myself. And then I'm just going to pay you labor. Or, you know, I'll say, hey, if I start the demo, what will you cut off your bid? You know, there's a lot of different ways that I've gone through to negotiate. It really does depend on the job, the project, and my timeline, how much I will go back and forth. But putting numbers down, I never take verbal bids anymore, putting numbers to paper and looking at it. And I think this also goes back to, I just know what you should be charging me, and I know what materials cost. So if you're charging me $1,000 more than I had budgeted, I'm going to need you to fully justify that extra $1,000. So
that's great. Great recommendation.
I think that, so for the ladies that don't have that experience yet, I'll share with you guys a couple of tips, right? So I work in construction all the time, and the one way, right there, I bet there are several ways. I'm going to just share one way that I usually do to know how much something needs to cost. So I have a very clear description. Let's say the kitchen. Let's use the kitchen as an example, right? You write the scope of work of what it needs to be done. Oh, let's say install new countertops, new cabinets, handles, sink, faucet, you name all of that. And then you give also the finishes that you want, because for one person might be something and for the other person might be something else. So be very clear with that. And then you get between 2 or 3 bids. So all of them are going to have the same scope of work, the same finishes. So the numbers that you're going to get is going to be very, very, very similar. It should be very, very similar. It should be, right? So as Jen said, you want them to break down. You don't want like a lump sum, like one page lump sum. That doesn't help you. But if you break down, as she mentioned, you can compare with them and say, hey, and then you're going to find where the discrepancies are. And I agree with Jen. I want the sweet spot. The cheapest guy, I'm telling you, is going to cost you the most.
He's the most expensive always.
He's the most expensive of all of them. I never, ever in all those years, every time when I went with the cheapest guide, he took the most of my time, and that cost me much more. Much more. So be very careful when you are selecting people and when you're negotiating. My sweet deal is to negotiate with a higher bid to get to the middle. That's a
great tip.
So negotiation tactics.
Love it.
Jen, tell me, what are your negotiation tactics when you are talking to somebody?
So with this, it's a little different now, just because I've now got my crew of subs for the most part that I use, and they know Jenn's not going to go for that. I mean, they just
right?
know, you know, starting out, did not have a good crew. I was learning as I went, making mistakes and overpaying. Back then, like if they give me this $3,000 bed, let's say, you know, I would ask him, how can I get that down? Is there anything that we could do that would get that cheaper? So it feels like I'm not attacking them. But it feels like we're coming together in an agreement that I'm not saying your bid that I can't do it, but I need us to get creative in our solutions to get those numbers down. Can we switch from, you know, this finish to this finish? Will that decrease my numbers if I do the demo? I think it goes back to questions. Man, I ask so many questions. And so I may say, well, what supplier are you using for this part? Have you checked this supplier? But sometimes they're a little cheaper. And I think that also goes down to getting that breakdown. I have found though, for the most part, I don't follow this religiously, just based on timeline, but when I get a breakdown, they're always upcharging me on materials. So 9 times out of 10, I'll say, take materials out and I'll just supply materials. I can have it here. I'm not going to upcharge myself, and I'm going to get airline miles because I'm going to put it on my credit card. So.
Exactly. I want to emphasize something that you said that is so important. So, ladies, she didn't ask the sub, can you make this cheaper, or can you? She asked, how can we? She's not asking can.
Yeah.
She's asking how, because we're
Right.
going to. We're going to, and now we need to figure out how. And when she says we instead of you, it's not personal. We are like a team. And so how can we work this out? How can we make this better? How can we figure this out? That is like a mindset that if you apply everywhere, the person is not going to feel attacked, just
Right.
respect it, or think that, oh, you're so cheap. Like, no, how can we figure this out? Let's look.
Yeah.
Are you open to look? Are you open to see if there are some spots that we can? There's always a spot. Have you found like that there's always?
Yes. And if you have a good sub, they're willing to have that conversation with you. If it's, nope, that's it. Okay, well then you're probably not the sub for me. And I think that's also one of those things when I started, I didn't know that. I just like, okay, then we need to part ways. We're not going to work well together, and be okay with that and move on to the next one. And when you find the sweet spot of a crew and a sub that is just willing to work with you and willing to work with your budget and your timeline, man, I say this all the time, I'll pay up for you. If you will show up on time and you're sober and you do good work, I will pay up for you.
You're sober. That is so true.
Well, it's a rarity, unfortunately. That's why I'll pay up.
I love it. I love it. So take us through the flip you're doing now. So you're doing a live-in flip that you are going to hold. Is this a single family? Is this a multifamily? Tell us a little bit about that project.
So it's a single family. I've had it 2.5 years. What was super interesting to me about this property, and the reason that I purchased it, was that it had a detached garage out back that the previous owner built. It was an older gentleman that was into woodworking, and he wanted a shop. So it was very much a shop, very industrial and tools and sawdust everywhere. But that to me was where the money was at. Was in that detached garage with a broken garage door, a hole in the ceiling. You know, man, I saw dollar signs the second I walked in there, because that was not included in the square footage. And I thought, I can include this in the square footage and get a huge return on this house just based on the detached garage alone. So that's what I have slowly in my spare time been doing, is turning that garage into a detached apartment. And I've said this several times, I flipped houses a lot faster than I'm flipping this garage.
What's happening?
It's just, you know, we started with fighting the city. This was not a very common thing, especially I'm in the historic district. saying, hey, I want to turn a garage into a detached apartment and I want it to be income producing. And there was some static over that, but got through that and tried to do as much work as I could myself, just to save on the budget. But we're on the home stretch. We're on the home stretch of that. I'm projecting, hoping it's going to be done in the next month, 2 months. And it is totally livable. It now has a full bathroom. It has heat and air. It's got a little kitchenette. It's a little 425 square foot.
Perfect.
Little studio apartment.
Aww.
That on the resale side is just having an income producing where someone could move into this house and house hack if they wanted to, has a tremendous value. So that is kind of where I've been. I've slowly been fixing up the house too, but it was in really great shape. Really just needed some cosmetic stuff. The bulk of my energy went to that.
So are you going to Airbnb it for now?
Possibly. That's still up in the air again with the city. Our little area, that is becoming more and more of a question.
Sure.
So to be determined is the answer.
Yeah. And I love that you went into this project too as like the adding value perspective and like looking at the garage, not as like a pain, but as an opportunity.
Gosh,
Because you have to run your numbers. Okay, so this single family home, I'm going to rent it at X. I'm buying it for Y. You run your numbers with the asset you're getting.
Yes.
But there is a part of investing and buying property that there's an opportunity, right?
Yes.
And that is part of the decision-making process,
Right.
and I think it's that value add perspective, whether it's you're buying a small multifamily and you are going to, add enough work to those apartments with new this, and this, so you can add $150 to that rent. That's a value add. What you did was also a value add where you took a detached garage, right? And you're renovating it as another income producing opportunity. That was not the case at that time. So, when you go look at these properties and all these things, like a lot of what most people will say is a pain is dollar signs if you're looking at it in the right way, and I think that's just a great point I just wanted to mention, because I think not everyone would have looked at it like you did. And I think that's important because we need to look at those things and consider them as we're evaluating deals.
Because I think, if this property did not have the detached garage, I wouldn't have bought in. The numbers would not have made sense.
Got it.
But that garage just added significant value to the property. So it made the numbers make sense. So anytime now, if I see in a listing or if I'm visiting a house, it's got a detached garage, oh my God, let me go. I may be interested, because there's such an opportunity for increased square footage. So
that's amazing. And you can also, if let's say Airbnb didn't work, you can still have like an in-law suite or something for a future family. So I always think like, okay, if plan A goes down to the drain, what is plan B? What is plan C? And then keep going. So you mentioned at the beginning of the show that you had a student loan, right?
God, yes.
And it sounds that you don't have it anymore.
I do not, no.
So for so many people that are listening to us that are investors now, or they have a W-2 and they still pay the student loan. I have a friend, she told me the amount that she pays. It's like a leg that she gives away every month.
It's insanity.
I don't have a student loan. So I did not know this world of student loans. And I was like, it's like, okay, you are on this marathon, but guess what? You're going to walk without a leg. So go. And then I was like, how is this possible? And I was like, she's not into real estate, but I was like, we need to figure out something so you can really pay this quicker. She was like, how is it like a foreigner language for her? So for you, how were you able to pay $70,000 in student loan?
So whenever I sold Flip 1, I took half of the profits and dedicated towards the next house, Flip 2. But the other half, I just threw at the principal.
You did not go on a vacation?
I did not go on a vacation.
Did you not buy a Chanel bag?
I did not. I know. Go figure. I must not be a true millennial. I say this all the time, and it never really goes down well, but the power of inconvenience is how you will pay off your student loans. If you're not willing to be inconvenienced, then you're going to die with that debt. I was willing to be inconvenienced by living in a flip and in a construction zone, and I was willing to be inconvenienced and move every 2 years. I was willing to be inconvenienced that I spent my nights and weekends painting or tearing up floors or whatever, because it got me to my end goal, which was to be debt free. When I mention it to, I have student loan debt. How can I pay it? Well, real estate will be your friend. You need to move. Oh, I don't want to. And the excuses roll. Okay, well then you're not ready to be debt free. When you're ready to be debt free, you're ready to be inconvenienced, whatever it takes to get you there.
I love that. Are you willing to be inconvenienced? It's like that. It's like another way of saying like delayed gratification.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of that too. It's like people will say, oh, this or that. How did you get started? And I'm like, yeah, we lived in a small home for a lot of years.
Yeah.
We didn't just keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I'm cheap as hell.
Yes.
I still am.
Too.
But like those sort of things, like, are you willing? I like that as a question, because it's like, just be, sometimes you just say like, are you willing to delay your gratifications, but are you willing to be inconvenienced so that you can have what you want? And I think it's a nice way of saying it. I think that's very, just kind of get your wheels turning, and hopefully the women listening or even the women that they're interacting with, their friends.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
And I
awesome.
think, as I mentioned, the excuses typically roll in. But if I'm grossing $24,000 with $70,000 in student loan debt and I can do it, anyone can do it. And I think that you just have to buckle down and say, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And I have no regrets. All of the inconveniences over those 5 years, no regrets.
You wouldn't be where you are today.
Right. Really exactly.
Really
and
neat.
You guys mentioned something that I just don't want to, pass. You talked about the friends, right? Then when you share with your friends and they're like, what are you talking about? Aren't we going to Florida? Right. What?
Yeah.
Right. So it is not easy to share that you are on a path of financial freedom. And there are friends that say, no, what are you talking about, or not support you. I'm not saying to ditch those friends, but I'm saying ditch those friends for certain moments. Right. So you got to hang out with some people, but your environment will determine also how fast and how well you get there. So surround yourself with people with the right mindset that will support you, that will cook in instead of ordering, because they also are in a path, or they're just there to support you. So you need those friends too. And if you don't have them on your list, hang out, look for a community like the investor community, for example. You will find people that will say, I totally get where you're coming from, and I will support you. What can I do to help?
Yeah.
So you need to have those support systems around you for sure.
That's awesome. Absolutely true.
Yeah. Jennifer, this has been amazing. Where can the ladies listening learn more about you and keep up with all your projects? Because it's like, this is better than HGTV, right?
Well, I'd love for y'all to come hang out with me on Instagram. It's Bachelorette Pad Flip. I also have a blog and a website where I chronicle each flip and project. That's bachelorettepadflip.com. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Facebook, all Bachelorette Pad Flip. So easy to find.
That's great. And all this information you guys going to find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. And Jen, the first one is, what's the most impactful book you have ever read?
So I don't read real estate books. I've never read a real estate book. So this book,
wow.
I've got, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't read real estate books, but the book that I've read it's the book I guessed, it's just life-changing to me, was The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. Phenomenal book. He was a college professor that received a terminal diagnosis. He knew that he was dying, hence the title, The Last Lecture. And this is his last lecture, kind of geared towards his children, all of his life lessons written down in a book. Phenomenal book with some really great practical tips anywhere from dating to money to work. Great book. Highly recommend reading it. If you prefer to listen, he actually recorded the last lecture on YouTube, and it's on there as well.
Nice. And the second question is, what's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life?
Apart from living within my means, that helps me live financially free. Actually, I would say I live far below my means. I think that's key. The other routine to keep me feel a little balanced and sane in my crazy life is that I have a carved out appointment every Thursday at lunch. I go and I hang out with our homeless and we eat together. And I started out, going to help them, but it has become a critical part of my week that just gives me new perspective when I am super stressed or I've got deadlines that I don't know that I'm going to meet. I walk away with a whole new perspective, and I've made some friends with our homeless community. My clients know that, hey, Jen's not meeting at lunch, and my subs know I'm not going to be there at lunch on Thursday. It's a non-negotiable in my schedule. So whatever that is that makes you feel stress-free or relaxed, it should be a non-negotiable in your schedule. So
that's awesome. The last question is, which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
Can I say two? Okay. One would be my grandma. Lived through the Depression. And I think living through the Depression greatly impacted how she viewed money and resources. And that rubbed off on me. She was very frugal and very strong, went through a lot in her life. So I would say absolutely she is one. And then my mom grew up in poverty, lived in a house with no indoor plumbing until she got married to my dad. And ended up just killing it in the boys club at Walmart. She started, when Walmart was new, and Sam Walton took note of her. And, before he died, this girl that grew up in poverty in a house with no plumbing ended up in the world's richest man's biography. So when Sam Walton wrote his book, he included my mom in it because she just had this powerful story of overcoming poverty and achieving financial freedom through her career at Walmart. So I would say mom and grandma.
That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. That is amazing. I always wanted to read his book. Now I'll be like, oh my gosh, I know someone in that book.
Yes, Made in America. You need to go read it. Mom's in there.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being on our show, sharing your great tips. Wish you the absolute best with what you're up to. You're up to some amazing things.
Thank you so much.
So thanks for being here with us.
Thanks so much, Jen.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.